before I start, let me give you a quick background about PayU. So PayU is the fintech arm of Naspers Group. It's a global technology investor giant. And PayU powers payments in 18 countries today. We, in India alone, we partner with 4.5 lakh merchants, close to 4.5 lakh merchants powering over 400 million transactions in a year, worth around 700 billion US dollar in terms of TPV. And we also have a flagship partnership program in which we partner with close to more than 1,000 plus partners. And I'm going to talk to you today about this partnership program. So before I start, let me give you a quick understanding on who is a partner and who is a merchant for us. So merchants are anybody who want to accept a payment online for us. And partners are entities who manage merchants. A partner can have multiple merchants. Like there is no limit, there is no cap on the number of merchants that can be managed by a partner. And I'll get into the details of what a partner can do. But before that, let me answer a very fundamental question. Why should you even think about partnering with PayU? So if you are a developer, or if you are a tech startup, or if you are a freelancer who is working on a domain where you provide to your clients services which are linked around payments, then we help your business grow. Yes, the fundamental aim of our partnership program is to grow our own business by partnering with businesses by facilitating their growth. And how do we do that? We do that by providing some benefits to our partners, which the first of which I would say we give a dedicated account manager to all of our partners, and this dedicated account manager can help you with onboarding a merchant, helping integrate the payment gateway, or any sort of help that a merchant would need, that your client of yours would need down the line with payments. We help, the dedicated account manager will help you with that. And we also give you certain capabilities to do express client onboarding. You can onboard we give you partners specific capabilities to onboard a client so very fast with us, whether it's through an API or whether it's through capabilities that we provide through dashboard. And in addition to this, we also provide you with a steady stream of income through our incentives program. And our incentive program is one of the most lucrative partner incentive programs in the payments domain. And there is no limit to the amount that you can earn through as incentives through our partner program. Why? Because the total income that you would earn is always proportionate, or is always a percentage of the total transactions done by the merchant whom you are linked with. That's how our partner program is designed. And finally, we also give you capabilities to track merchants who are linked with you under your partner account. I'll walk you through each of these capabilities as we go through this presentation. So now that I've discussed why you should think about partnering with PayU and what are the high-level benefits you get as a partner, let me just take a step back and tell when I say partner, whom am I referring to our partners? Are we referring to only big enterprises when I say the term partner? So we do definitely partner with large platforms as well, but the focus of this discussion that I would like to keep is about partners partners belonging to three sets of categories. So the category number one, it belongs to a referral persona, and these are guys who are the typical example of a referral persona will be a freelance marketer or a freelance designer who have the contact information of a client who needs a payment gateway service, but does not give them any sort of technical help in terms of building an application or creating a website or anything. So this is the first persona that we focus on in terms of our partnerships. Second persona that we work to create products for is an influencer persona. The typical example of an influencer would be a blogger, a video blogger, or a Facebook group admin, etc., who are mostly focusing on the fintech domain. So, and the last persona that we are focusing on is a developer or a tech startup who are working towards building applications which can, building applications which require some payment capabilities. I'll deep dive into the products that we have built for each of these categories, but I'll give a high-level overview to start with. So for the first persona, that is the referrer, who can be a freelance designer or a freelance marketer, we have a partner dashboard. And you can create a partner account with us and use this dashboard to pass on this contact information to PayU, and we will convert them to a merchant with us. And once the merchant, the lead that you have shared with us starts transacting, you will earn incentives out of it. I'll go deep into that specific program. The second product that we have is affiliate links, which is again focused primarily on the affiliate, influencer persona, who the influencer, as I said, can be a blogger, a video, somebody who creates video content, or a Facebook page owner. So how it works is like you have a link which can be shared on, say, your blog. If you have a large clientele who is looking for payment gateway services, if they click on the link and onboard with PayU, they become a merchant with us and get automatically tagged under the partner account. For the last persona, that is the developer, freelance developer, or the tech startup, we have an API suite which gives capabilities which are which are exclusively provided only to partners of PayU. Using these APIs, we will help you build applications which are say 10x more capable than the applications that you can design today, as well as 10x more user friendly. But before I go to the next step, let me just tell you how you can become a partner with PayU. So you can always go to partner.payu.in and sign up there to create an account. Once you create, it'll take you hardly 30 seconds to create a partner account with us. And once you create a partner account, instantly you can refer merchants to PayU and start instantly refer merchants to PayU. But to start receiving incentives, you have to do a little bit more. You have to also share some KYC and come into a partnership agreement with us, which will not, again, it's not a time-taking step. It will hardly take like 1 hour to do that. And once you are done with the partnership agreement, you are all eligible to start receiving incentives from the partner program. Now I'll go into the details of how each of these products can help you earn money, through our partner program. First, I'll focus on the referrer persona. That is, if you are a freelancer or if you are anybody who have contact information, who wants a payment gateway, how you can use that information to earn some side income. So we give you access to our partner dashboard. This is our partner dashboard. You can see, I don't think the slide is very clear, but overall, you can see the contact information on the table in the middle, and you will also be able to track the amount each of your merchants that you are referred to PayU will has received in the settlement. You will also be able to see their onboarding, the stage at which the merchant you are referred is in with respect to the PayU onboarding process. That along with that, on your left, you can see 2 tiles. The bottom tile is the referral link or the affiliate link product I talked to you about, and I'll talk to you in detail in the next slide. On the top leftmost tile, there is a refer a merchant option. Using this option, you can refer merchants to PayU and how you can do that. So on clicking that, there is a pop-up that opens which will tell you to enter the basic merchant information like email, mobile, and merchant name. That is good for us for a referral, to do a basic referral. However, if you have more information like the merchant address details, merchant documents, you can also submit that to us as well. And once you submit these details, this details will be shared with our sales team, and our sales team will contact the merchant and help him on board with as a merchant of PayU. And this referral will be shown in your partner dashboard, and you will be like whenever the merchant makes a sale, you will receive a percentage of it as your incentive commission. While you offer a merchant, refer a merchant, you can also offer him a customized pricing plan. So how the pricing plan works is, like, we basically collect a setup fee, and the higher setup fee you pay as a merchant, the lower the commercials or the TDR that we charge for that particular merchant. So like as a partner, you will get like 30% of the setup fee as your incentive or commission if you refer a merchant with us. Now that I quickly covered the first persona of the referrer, let me move ahead to the second persona, that how, if you are somebody who blogs about how you can integrate various payment gateway services in India, or if you do video blogs or something about how the various fintechs are performing, or like in India, or like what are the various fintechs startups, most interesting fintech startups in India, then you can use our affiliate links product to monetize your blog. And how the affiliate link product works is very simple. So as I showed you earlier, the affiliate links is available on our dashboard. You can just copy and share it in the right channel, through the right channel to your clientele. So it could be your blog, it could be a video, or it could be even be sent to a client over an email or a WhatsApp message. So if the user clicks on it and create an account with us, then like that account will be tagged under your partner account, and you will be eligible for incentives. And in case you want to track how many customers created an account with PayU through my affiliate link, those details and information are available in your dashboard. You can even follow up with them to help them on board, or help them offer any extra services that you want. Now I'll move on to the last persona that I discussed about, which is the PayU, which is the developer persona. And for the developer persona, like who is building an application, like how can you monetize an app? Like in today's, as of today, we know, like if you build an application, we have the main way of monetizing it is like listing it as a paid app in a Magento marketplace, or say a Play Store or a App Store, right? I mean, this is one obvious way of monetizing an application. However, not all paid applications work. But now, like we at PayU are exposing you certain APIs, which will allow you to build applications which are 10 times more capable than the applications that are available today, which revolving around payment gateway services, 10 times more user friendly, and as well as we give you an alternate way of monetizing these applications through the PayU partner program. So I'll walk you through the important APIs. I'm not going to go into a detailed technical discussion here, but I'll walk you through the important APIs of our partner program, and then we will wind up this discussion. So first API that I'm going to talk about is the Verify and Link Merchant API. I don't know if this screen is very clear, but like most of you who work here are working on B2B products. And in B2B products, we know when there is an integration with third-party service, for the end merchant, the integration page will be like a configuration page wherein you will enter the API credentials of the merchant, right? Like it could be an emailing service, it could be an analytics tool, it could be a shipping service. So anything would be like, most of the time, integration for the final merchant would be like putting the right API credentials into the settings page of that particular plugin, or like the particular service, right? Same is the case for any payment gateway also in India as of today. And it's like as a merchant, you would come to the, say, let me take the example of Magento. So if you are installing the Magento PayU plugin, you would come to the the plugins settings page, wherein you have to input the API credentials of you as a PayU merchant. We call the API credentials the merchant salt and the merchant key. So this is the first area where we improvised our solution. So like over here, like when we analyze the data of our existing partners, we found out that 55% of our users struggle with this simple step also. Like even if it's just a copying of API credentials from the dashboard and pasting it here, we found out that 55% of our users struggle to do this. And what were the problems they were facing? They were mainly there are two issues mainly. One, they did not know what exactly or where to exactly the key and salt of the merchant is available in PayU dashboard. Problem number one. And problem number two, when they copy pasted these API credentials, accidentally they copy paste an extra white space either at the beginning or at the end of the API credentials, and which is why it will not work. Why this is a problem? Because if the API credentials are not copied correctly, the merchant will say the plugin is not, there is a problem with the plugin, right? Or there is a problem with PayU, one of these two. And most likely they will say there is a problem with the plugin, and they will leave negative feedbacks on the App Store or the plugin marketplace, and that will impact the usage of your plugin. So we thought we could address this problem by through an API which will verify these credentials for you after the merchant enters it. So for PayU, as I said, there is a merchant salt and key, which are the API credentials. And when you pass a merchant salt and key along with the MID to us, we send you back a response saying whether these are the right pairs of key and salt for that particular merchant ID or not. Now I call it this way, you can remove all the errors in terms of plugin integration that happens with PayU. Second, like I call it a verify and link API, right? Not just a verify API. So the link part comes in wherein after you verify, this particular merchant account will be automatically be tagged into your partner account, which means going forward, all the transactions initiated through this plugin, you will earn incentives for all the transactions initiated through this plugin going forward after the linkage has happened. Now, does this solve all the problems for the merchant? So for an existing merchant, I guess this flow will work pretty fine, right? But what about those merchants who are not yet with PayU? So for them, we have thought about an onboarding API, which we call the Create Merchant API. How this will work is basically like on the plugin settings page, if it's a merchant who do not have a merchant account with us, then like instead of asking him to enter the key merchant, API credentials, you can ask him to create a merchant account with PayU directly from your plugin page, or say your own application, by passing us a merchant name, email and phone number, which are identifiable details for any long tail merchant also, right? I mean, even if I'm not a tech savvy merchant, I know my email ID, I know my mobile number, and I know my name. So I can pass these details over a Create Merchant API, which will create a merchant account for you. Once a merchant account is created, we give you back in response an merchant ID. Along with that, we'll also shoot an email to the merchant saying, hey merchant, you have been referred by this partner. Why don't you go and do these XYZ steps to onboard yourself fully with PayU? So effectively, what this means is like you can just create an account, a PayU account in a single step from your plugin dashboard. But again, that doesn't solve for the API credentials, because we require API credentials to start accepting payments for a merchant, right? So how do we go there? So we have one more API which we call the Get Merchant Credentials API. What this API does is, for any linked merchant, any merchant who is linked to your partner account, we will give you the API credentials of that merchant seamlessly from the backend without the merchant having to manually input this. So just think about this. You have a merchant who is integrating a plugin, and now he just came to the plugin settings page, entered his name, email and phone number, clicked on submit, and his account is fully enabled to start accepting payments immediately. When I say start accepting payments, he can start transacting like instantly within say 15 seconds. that's how simple we have made the payment integration part for from a third-party service. Now, again, there is a small problem. Like the problem, like for at PayU, we do for every merchant of ours from whom we accept payments, we do KYC. We collect a lot of KYC documentation, which is like the regulatory requirement as well as a risk requirement from our side. So we have to have a service agreement with the merchant. So what we have done is like we have only enabled the merchant to start collecting payments immediately. At our onboarding process ensures that the merchant does not get settlement until he receives his, until he completes his onboarding steps. So like your merchant in this case might again start complaining that your application has now started collecting payments, but I'm not receiving anything into my bank account. And you might come out as a fraud application. So how do you prevent that? So that is where our onboarding status API comes into picture. So we have what we call a get merchant API. How this API works is basically you pass the same merchant ID who is linked to your partner account, and we will give you back their onboarding status, which will tell you at which stage of PayU onboarding is the merchant currently in. So until and unless he is settlement enabled or live or like fully onboarded, till then you can communicate to him. You can keep on communicate to him over notifications or emails that your plugin setup is good for accepting payments. However, you will not receive money as settlement into your bank account. So please go to PayU and complete these steps. Now, does that mean like he has to come to PayU all the time to complete the KYC? Need not necessarily do that. We have APIs to support documents upload and all other steps in PayU onboarding. However, I'm keeping that for a separate discussion because like I guess I'll, in the interest of time. So now I have covered the onboarding API, which will allow you to create a new merchant, and and also the verify and link API, which will allow you to link an existing merchant to your application. We also discussed the API to fetch the onboarding status. But most important aspect in a payments company is collecting payments, right? It's not just collecting payments, checking the payment status again and again, doing refunds, doing payouts to the merchant, right? And finally checking the settlement status. How do you do all that? So we have APIs which are exposed at a merchant level, like which are publicly available in our documentation, which can be used to do all that. And now you have the API credentials. By linking a merchant to your partner account, you already have access to the merchant's API credentials, which means you can hit all these APIs on behalf of the merchant, like accepting payments, like doing inquiry of his transaction after a transaction was initiated, doing refunds, checking the settlement status. All these can be managed over APIs, which means you can provide a complete payment experience on a third-party service and manage it end-to-end. Now, I guess in the interest of time, I'm not getting into the details of all the APIs, and I guess it's like right after lunch, so let me not bore you out too much. So I'll just quickly recap what we have discussed. We have a partner program which is aimed at developers like you, wherein we would like you to join that partner program and earn some handsome incentives. And you can join this partner program by creating an account on partner.payu.in. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Jude. All right, now we'll be having the presentation on how to getting frustrated with lengthy checkouts and the optimization of checkouts within Magento. And for that, I'll be asking Mr. Himanshu to come up and present the same. Mr. Himanshu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Himanshu Jindal, and I am an iOS developer at Webkul Software Private Limited. Today, I am going to discuss with you on the topic getting frustrated with lengthy checkouts and poor search results. So, I am going to start with how consumers do shopping before and how they are moved to the shopping through online websites and mobile apps. So, you can see that the e-commerce has also a major part in doing the shopping through online apps and mobile apps. So, I am going to show you how the mobile has been diminishing the line between the online shopping and offline shopping. So, these are the points given over here. So, first point is discover new points. So, we can in online shopping we can discover our new products through online, or sitting over in India we can discover the products in our UK and US as well. We can locate the products easily from one place to another place and compare their prices. It is not possible to have all the products into one shop in our physical store, but we can have that in our online shopping e-commerce apps. We can create and manage shopping list as well. We can easily create the add the products into our shopping list or fish list or any compare list in our mobile apps. We can make the most important one, the make purchases using any payment method. When we go to the physical stores, there we only find the cash delivery or any Paytm or Beam. But in online payment we have the other options as well, like Braintree, Stripe, the PayPal, PayU. So that's more convenient for us to just pay through those apps as well. Last one, the review purchases in order summary. Yeah, this is the most important one. What we have to just whenever we go to buy any product, we need to just check out the reviews. So that reviews are very mandatory for us to just trust on that product and have it a good understanding of that product. So we don't get in our offline stores, but we get it on the online stores. So these are the points that were for. So there are some statistical data given over here. 87% of the shoppers today are using the e-commerce reviews, and out of 87%, 77% are those shoppers buy online. There are 75% of the customers buy products through the reviews, and 72% of e-commerce takes place in mobile devices by 2021. So this is the innovation in voice, using the voice purchase in our e-commerce apps. So we have just implemented a demo for that. I am going to show you in my next slides. Starting with the voice purchase. So what is voice purchase? Voice purchase is the acquisition of any of the product through e-commerce app using our voice without the intervention of any touch screen. We can just buy any of the product just a click, or we can use our voice easily. So that makes our that do it in a faster way. It is very communicative, convenience all. So there are some business goals written over here, like better customer experience, secure payment gateways, increase in mobile apps, and store navigation. So how the voice is affecting the e-commerce app? So if a consumer is buying any product and do it on the spot, so the local business or an e-commerce business wouldn't be affected. Yes, it would be, because we are just saving the time, and we are doing it in a faster way, and in a way it is very communicative, it is very convenient, and it is very exclusive. So that's why the m-commerce, as we have seen, m-commerce is being growing in the past few years, and is expected to grow much more. So there is some data statistical for the voice search, and is expected to grow more Google stated that 2 out of 10 mobile searches are done by the voice. According to Salesforce, 4 out of 10 millennials consumers search online through their voice, and Nielsen predicts that 2% of the purchase through voice will be done in 2025. So there are some innovations of mobile apps. These are the big products of tech giants. First one, Apple's Assistant. Second, Apple Siri. Google Assistant, Apple Siri, Amazon Alexa, Windows Cortana. So I'm going to talk about the Apple Siri because we have created one demo using our Magento 2 mobile app. So what is Siri? First of all, I will just explain you what is Siri. So Siri can be collectively defined by the following terms. So these terms like artificial intelligence, virtual assistant, speech to text, and cloud computing, they all collectively form the Siri. So starting with the AI part. So how AI works with Siri? So AI is used to imitate the human abilities like language, voice, speech, and ability to answer. So same way what Siri does, Siri handles everything in our device settings, schedule meetings, and reminders, and engage with other applications as well. So Siri is automatically can be defined as a smart pocket assistant that makes the task done by the human as AI does. So what is virtual assistant? Virtual assistant that understands in natural language voice commands and completes the task for the user. Like we have the PA and secretary. What they do? They do the task for us. So same way the virtual assistant do some of the tasks written over here. Items, add items to do list, make or receive calls, create text messages, check flag status, and the most important one, playing for the song. What does speech to text do? The process of converting the speech input into digital text on based of speech recognition is speech to text. Previously we were using the keyboard for searching out the query and getting out the result, but now we are moving towards the voice, so that makes the Siri to use that in our Apple devices. So does cloud computing helps in voice search? Yes, it does, because there are millions of users who are using Siri currently, and there are millions of requests that are generating over the cloud. So there the cloud computes the data and provides us the better results through its dedicated server that are communicating to each other properly. So now I am going to show you the checkout through Siri using our demo app. So this is our Magento 2 mobile app. So I am going to put this app into the kill mode, terminated mode. So the app is, so there is no app in background. I am going to start with adding some of the, I've already added some of the products into my wish list, and now I am going to check out those products to the cart without touching anywhere on the screen. Hey Siri, show Webkul wish list.
Okay, you have 4 products in your wish list.
So we have 4 products into our wish list. I haven't clicked anywhere. I've just used my voice to do so. Now I'm going to add my first product into the cart. Hey Siri, add first product to shopping cart.
Done. Adding first product into your cart.
So the first product has been added, and we have left with the 3 products into our wish list. Now the next step, I will be adding all my products into the cart. You can see over there, there is a one product into our cart. Now I'm going to add other 3 products as well into the cart. Hey Siri, add all products to shopping cart.
That's done. Adding all products into your cart.
All the products has been added to my shopping cart. Now I'm going to show you the shopping cart. Hey Siri, show my shopping cart.
Okay? You have 4 products in your cart.
So you can see all the 4 products has been added into my shopping cart. Now we going to the last step, that is checkout through Webkul app. Hey Siri, check out Webkul cart.
That's done. Your order has been placed successfully and your order ID is number 0000000081.
Yeah, it was the order ID actually. So that's we have now you can see that we have placed the order without the intervention of any touch screen. So that's for the how we can get out from the lengthy checkouts and do it easily, and we can easily just we can easily enhance the evolution for the checkouts in our e-commerce. So now I would like to ask my colleague Mr. Rishabh Sharma to come and just deliver the talk on the poor search results.
So let's start with an example here. So you can see I was trying to search for something and I search results here. So a normal human being can easily understand this, like I was trying to search for something and I got 0 search results here, like there is a spelling mistake over here due to which I got wrong search result. So how we can improve this? We can improve this with the help of voice search in e-commerce. So these are some smart predictions over here like great, see you then, or me too. So we can use them in our reply, or I can write my reply manually. Let's see a demo over here, like one of the example of NLPs. So I will be giving a review over here, and we will see if it is a positive review or a negative review. So I'm typing first a negative review over here. So I'm writing, I hated this product. So as you can see, it has analyzed the review score, or you can say a magnitude from my review. So it is a negative review, and it is minus 0.9. So we need to improvise this product, like we can see here. So it provides us a magnitude from -1 to 1. So if it is a negative, or I think I love this product. Now you can see it is a positive sentiment. Our review score is in positive. So in this way, we can make use of NLP in improvising the user experience also. So you can see here, it has provided me the syntax of my sentence, like what are the pronouns here and what are the nouns. With the help of this, we can do many things, and we can improvise our e-commerce as well. Thank you.
So that was how to that was how we can. All right, let's get ahead and let's see what we have. Let's ask Mr. Sanjay Chouhan to come up, and he'll be speaking on the topic that's how to make a reliable and scalable e-commerce website. So, Mr. Sanjay Chouhan.
Hi everyone, my name is Sanjay Chouhan, and today with my friend Manish and Manish, I'll be talking about how to make a reliable and scalable e-commerce with the help of message queue and microservices. I'll talk about the message queue, and Manish will explain you the microservices. So let's start with it. Before directly diving into message queue, let's imagine a scenario that there is a big sale coming up on your e-commerce site, and you want to notify all your subscribed customers. You have around 10,000 subscribed customers, and so you write an attention grabbing email and hit the send button. Your application starts sending email to each subscriber one by one. But while sending email to the subscriber number 251, your application fails for some reason. You can start the process again and send the email successfully, but even if you do that, the 250 people are going to get the same email from you twice. So how can we ensure that the emails get sent to each subscriber only once, even if something goes wrong along the way? Answer to the question is message queue. So what is message queue? Message queue enables different applications to have an indirect one-way communication with each other. The sender and the receiver of the message do not interact directly, They don't even have to be connected with the message queue at the same time. Amazon offers a bit more formal definition, which says that a message queue service is a form of asynchronous service-to-service communication used in microservice and serverless architecture. Message queue is a queue of messages sent between different applications, where each message represents a task to be performed. So, how does message queue work? The message queue has three basic entities: producer, consumer, and queue. A producer is whoever creates and sends the message. A consumer is whoever receives and reads the message, and the queue is a buffer where the messages are stored. When a producer publishes a message, it gets added to the queue. Then a consumer can receive the message and process it. After consumer has consumed the message, it will send an acknowledgement to the queue, and the queue will remove the message from the itself. So the message queue architecture requires an additional service called message broker. The task of the message broker is to gather, route, and distribute the message from the sender to the right receivers. There are many message brokers available in the market like RabbitMQ, ActiveMQ, Kafka, and Amazon SQS. Now let's get back to our scenario and see how we can implement message queue. In our scenario, we had 10,000 emails to be sent. So we can, with message queue, we can our application will act as a producer and publish messages, where each message will contain the list of 100 subscribers and the email template itself. When the messages are added to the queue, a consumer can receive the message and process it. By processing, we mean sending the email to the 100 subscribers. Once the consumer has consumed the message, it will send an acknowledgement to the message queue, and the message queue will remove the message from the queue. In this way, we can send the emails in small batch. Now let's see, why should you use message queue? The message queue allows the overall architecture to be loosely coupled. It decouples the heavyweight processing from the main server. As you saw in our example, we had heavy tasks to be performed, so we send that task to another server so that even if something goes wrong, our main server will not face any downtime. The message queue allows fully async communication between the sender and the receiver. It means if I have to make a request for a service, I can just publish a message and move on with my work. The message queue ensures that once the message has been published, it will be available in the message queue until a consumer consumes it. Message queue are very secure. The advanced message broker like RabbitMQ supports multiple messaging protocols and also have flexible authorization mechanisms. Now let's see how message queue is implemented in Magento 2. In Magento 2, the message queue framework or the MQF is a fully functional system that allows modules to produce messages, and it also allows modules to create consumers which can consume the messages asynchronously. The message queue framework uses the RabbitMQ as a message broker to implement the message queue, which provides an scalable platform for sending and receiving messages. It also has a mechanism to store the undelivered messages. Now let's see what is message queue. A message queue is an open source message broker which offers an highly available, scalable, and portable messaging system. It originally implemented advanced message queuing protocol, which means, but it has been extended to support multiple other protocols. The RabbitMQ has libraries for all major programming languages like PHP, .NET, Java, and many others. Now let's have a closer look at advanced message queuing protocol. The advanced message queuing protocol, or the AMQP, has very basic model, which has three basic entities: queue, binding, and exchange. A queue is a buffer where the messages are stored. The queue follows FIFO pattern. FIFO means first in, first out. So messages which come first to the queue will be consumed first. A binding is a link that you set up to connect queue to an exchange. an exchange uses this binding to route the message from the sender to the receiver, sender to the queue. And when a producer publishes a message, it first arrives at an exchange, then the exchange delivers the message to the queues with the help of the binding. There are 4 types of message exchange available in the RabbitMQ: direct, fan out, topic, and header. A direct exchange delivers the message directly to the connected queues whose binding key is exactly equals to the routing key. Routing key is an attribute of the message, while binding key is an attribute of the binding. As you can see here, the routing key of the message is green, and the binding key of the first queue is also green, so it will deliver the message to the first queue. Now let's have a look at fan out exchange. A fan out exchange ignores the routing key and it delivers the message to all the connected queues. The fan out, one use case of fan out exchange is message broadcast. Now let's have a look at topic exchange. A topic exchange routes the messages based on the routing key and the pattern in the binding key. In RabbitMQ, there are 2 types of wildcards available, like star and hash. Star is used to match one word, while hash is used to match 0 or more words. As you can see here, the routing key matches the pattern in the first binding and the last binding, so it will deliver the message to first and the last queues. Header exchange delivers the message by matching the key value pair present in the header. It has an special attribute called xmatch, which has 2 values, any and all. Any means at least one of the key value pair must match, while all means all the key value pair must match. As you can see here, the key value pair of the message is key1 value 1. So it will deliver to the first message of first queue only, because the second queue have the xmatch attribute of all. Once the consumer has consumed the message broker must delete the message from the queue. So, but before deleting that, the message broker must have an acknowledgement. In RabbitMQ, there are 2 types of acknowledgements available: automatic and explicit acknowledgement. Automatic acknowledgement means the message will be deleted once the consumer has received the message, while in case of explicit acknowledgements, the message gets deleted once the consumer sends an acknowledgement after receiving the message. In most cases, we use explicit acknowledgement to make sure that the message was processed successfully. Now let's look at few more examples of message queue. Let's suppose you have set up your e-commerce to send the PDF of the invoice immediately after the order. It will work fine if the number of orders per minute are less, but if as the number increases, like on the sale day, it will cause issue because the PDF creation is in CPU hogging process. So with message queue, we can send the details of the invoice as a message to a message queue, and we can create consumers which can read the PDF, read the in detail and create the PDF and send it to the subscribers or the customers. Let's suppose, let's take a look at another example. Let's suppose you added new category to your e-commerce and you have to now upload thousands of products. You can create an CSV file with the details of all the products and send details of each product as a message to a message queue. You can create consumers which can get the details and create the actual product in your e-commerce. Now that now my friend Manish will explain you about microservices.
Hi everyone. I would firstly like to thank Mr. Sanjay Chouhan for giving a wonderful presentation over message queue. Let me introduce myself. My name is Manish. I am a software engineer in Webkul from last 2 years. I am presenting my topic over moving from monolithic to microservices architecture. Here we will discuss about monolithic architecture, Magento architecture design, problems we face in monolithic architecture, microservices and techniques we use in microservices architecture. So, as we all know that Magento 2 follows monolithic architecture. What is monolith? monolith means composed all in one piece. A monolithic application can be described as multiple components combined into a single program from a single platform in the order for the code to work. A basic monolithic application uses three-layered architecture which contains client-side user interface, server-side application and database. Client-side user interface is used by our end users to interact with web application. Database is used to store records, while server-side application acts as intermediator and it receives requests from client-side user interface and processes actions into the database accordingly. Let's move into our next slide where we will discuss about Magento 2 architecture design. Here we have 4 layers: presentation layer, service layer, domain layer and persistence layer. In presentation layer, whenever an end user like customer or system administrator interacts with Magento 2 UI, he actually interacts with presentation layer. It contains controllers and view elements such as layouts, templates, blocks, CSS and JS. Our service layer acts as intermediator between presentation layer and domain layer. It receives requests from presentation layer in the form of controllers and web API requests and forwarded them to the domain layer. Domain layer contains business logics of our Magento components, or we can say Magento modules. Our persistence layer contains resource model and it is responsible for making CRUD operations with database interaction. Let's look into some issue we faced in monolithic architecture. One of the most common issue we faced is complexity while adding a new feature. For this, let's take an example. Assume we have a business running over Magento eCommerce application and our business is growing rapidly. Suppose we have to add a new feature in our module catalog. So in order to process a single module feature, we have to process the whole development lifecycle with the entire Magento code base, which can take a good amount of time. It can affect our business by slowing down the pace of our rapidly growing business. Another problem faced in monolithic architecture is large size of database. As I discussed in the example, our business is growing rapidly. So whenever our business grows, our database size increases as well, with such events like customer registration, new product added to the catalog, new orders placed. So as my friend Mr. Salona described in his presentation over Elasticsearch, that when you have multiple products in your catalog, a small query like search query for products where like keyword is used, it can take a good amount of time, which can lead to the performance degradation of your Magento application. So in order to resolve these issues, what we can do? We can change the architecture style for our Magento 2 application, or we can adapt a new one. For now, we can adapt the trending architecture in nowadays, which is microservices. So what is microservices? Microservices is a set of small interconnected services. We can define the microservices as a group of small interconnected services which have its own business logic and own separate database. In this, a small service can be an application on its own, which can use various adapters separately on their end. So to resolve the issue we discussed in monolithic architecture, we face the issues like complexity while adding a new feature and large database size. So as we can, so let's get back to the scenario where we are using Magento 2 application of monolithic architecture. We can break down it into small components to inherit the microservices architecture. Like to improvise our sales procedure, we can break down our major components such as catalog, checkout and order management into small components. So what we can do, we have to adapt a new feature in modules catalog. So now we have a different service for module catalog. We can adapt a new feature very easily and deploy in a very small amount of time. Another problem we faced is large database size. As our module catalog is also now separated, we can separate its database as well. So now database is separated. So you can now distribute your queries as per your services business logic. So now queries are less for your single service. So the process, it will process very fast and performance will would improve for your microservices architecture. So let's move to the next slide where we have described cap theorem. Whenever we adapt a new architecture style, in different architecture styles, we can, can I get some water? When we adapt a new architecture style, we have to change some database design pattern as well, which are well described in cap theorem. Cap theorem states that a distributed database can guarantee only 2 out of 3 features, which can be consistency, availability, and partial tolerance. Consistency ensures that each request should return same most recent return data or an error. Availability ensures that each request would respond with a non-error response, while partial tolerance ensures that your database would be consistent even when the communication would break. In partial tolerance, whenever your communication re-established, your database will consistent to the latest return transaction. So our Magento 2 monolithic architecture follows acid properties as we used single RDBMS database. ACID stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. We all are aware of ACID properties and its definition. So let's move to the base properties which are used in microservices architecture, where BA stands for basic availability, which ensure that your application would be always available for transactions, while S stands for soft state, which can define that any request can be processed in a database at any time. It means when you have not processed any input, it have some data already in the message log which can be executed in the database, while E stands for eventually consistency. As I mentioned that some events can be there in the message log. So eventually consistency ensure that your database is updated to the latest transactions using eventually consistency feature. So let's move to our next technique, new technique used in microservices architecture, which is CQRS. CQRS stands for command query regression responsibility segregation. CQRS states that every method could be a command or be a query. A command is a request in which some actions will be performed in the database or some data is written into the database, while a query will fetch the data from the database. So as we know that there are multiple queries which are basically CRUD operation we used in database, which stand for create, retrieve, update, and delete. So we have many read requests instead of write request. So we can distribute, and it can be handled by create, update, and delete request by command model, while read request by query model. command model is used to interact with database to write some data into the database, while query model interacts with its read slave database or abstract view created by multiple databases where we can read the data for our Magento UI. So next, move to our next and last slide, which is event sourcing. In event sourcing, some transactions are used to return into the write interface, which is our write model from previous technique of CQRS, and it is used message queue ahead, where this event first event is used as a producer, which can produce some events which are logged into our event log, which is our message broker, and it is lately handled by event handler to write the data into the database. So to acquire our asset properties, we can use event sourcing, as we don't have to care about our data would be lost or not. Our data, whenever we have generated some event, it will be logged into events and it would be stored in the event log, and laterly it would be handled by event handler to make the data consistent as per our asset properties. That's all for today. Thank you, guys. Any queries?
Jindal.
Live here? Looks like I am. Very good. Wow, this is exciting. So here it is, a little after 6 o'clock in the morning here in the United States, and I understand it's winding down the day for you all. So my name is Joseph, and I am excited to talk to you about certifications. Before I begin, though, just want to make sure people can hear me and see me. So can you see me? Okay. All right. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So let's get started. So, you know, my name is Joseph Maxwell. I am passionate about Magento certifications. I am excited to help other people achieve them, and that's been a big goal of mine for the last couple of years. So, I am based in the middle of the United States. You can see where we are right there, about literally as center as you get. So, as somebody who has helped write certifications for Magento, I want to share with you some inside secrets. What does it take to pass this? Because ultimately, I know that for many people all around the world, a Magento certification means an increase in pay. It means a ability to be a professional among your coworkers, like somebody your coworkers look up to. And obviously, Magento is very much encouraging people to become certified, but it also is a personal validation of your skills. And I was just actually working on writing up I've been publishing some LinkedIn videos about certifications. And ultimately, for me, one of the biggest reasons I have invested in certifications for myself is it forces me to learn, because we all want to put out good product, whether we are developing, writing code, whether we're directly interfacing or working with merchants. We want to do our best, and a certification is a great way to do that. I think one of the biggest things, though, is how do we ensure that, and I'm going to switch to my screen here, so 1 second so you can follow along with some with my slides. Let's see here. Okay. You should be seeing my screen at this moment. I've disappeared and you've now seen my screen. All right. So the question is, why do people fail these tests? I get emails quite regularly. People are upset and distraught, understandably so. They failed the test. Here's the thing. A common phrase here in the United States, maybe it is in India too, is failure is an event. It is not a person. So if you do end up failing a test, don't be discouraged. Just realize you now have a better understanding of this certification, what is expected in order to pass it. So here's a couple of reasons that I want to set up our talk here for the next 30 or so minutes. Why people fail. This is things that I have observed in my interactions, and I think this is pretty standard across the board. First, we would all guess maybe the first reason people don't pass is they don't study. Now, I be confident it's not you all here, but there are people around the world that just go take a test and they don't study for it. Whatever, it's their deal there. However, one thing I have seen maybe a little bit more common than that is people study really hard. People work hard to pass this test, but they actually study in maybe a incorrect way. And we're going to talk about the correct way to study for these tests here in a few minutes. But suffice it for now, memorizing concepts is actually not the way to pass it. I know it seems counterintuitive, but memorization is not the way to pass a Magento test. And finally, tests are in English, as I'm sure you have guessed. To be frank, that puts many people around the world at a disadvantage to passing these tests. I 100% understand that. And so I'm going to give you some suggestions later in how one can achieve these tests, even though it is more difficult for those that don't natively speak English. I do want to say right now, though, I absolutely applaud anybody who doesn't natively speak English, but who still takes and passes these tests. I cannot imagine myself going and trying to take a test in Spanish, Hindi, whatever language. It's incredible. So absolute congratulations for those who take it who don't natively speak English. All right, so let's look at, again, an overview of what we're going to talk about. First, what test should we take? the first way to set ourselves up for success is start with the right test. We're going to look at that. How do I prepare? We need to ensure that we are preparing using the right techniques. And then how do I take this test? I have some secrets, some insider secrets that I'm going to share with you as far as tips that you can implement in order to hopefully pass the test, even on the first round. So Magento U has 7 tests available. There's the solution specialist, and then you have the 6 developer tests. I'm going to run through each one individually, but before I do, this is what I would recommend as far as a path or a route to becoming certified. I do want to say, always tackle the associate developer test first. I know it seems maybe elementary, it seems basic. However, once you are associate developer certified, you will be more certified than most Magento developers out there. And that's a really good thing. So start with that and then work up from there. Ultimately, I would suggest the front-end developer next, then the professional developer, JavaScript, and cloud, if those apply to you. And then if you really want to tackle a hard one, go for the plus. So let's look at each one individually. The associate developer, again, it might sound basic. I understand the name, but it's tough. In fact, my understanding is that most people fail this test the first time. The majority of people pass it the second time. So it's still not easy. Basically, this test ensures that you know how to develop a Magento application or customize a Magento application. You know how to write a module. You know how to work with creating attributes for products, how to work with the customer area in the on the front end. You understand different product types, that sort of thing. So it's basic knowledge, but it's absolutely critical. Well, and actually, I think I mentioned, yes, the attributes. So you know the difference between a model, a resource model, a collection. What is the purpose of a repository? Why would you use a repository versus a collection? So there's a lot of core knowledge that is required in this test. The front-end developer, this again focuses somewhat on JavaScript, but you need to know how to work with JavaScript, how to work with CSS, or the less implementation in Magento. You need to understand the template system as well as layout XML, working with blocks. So this is, I would say, easier than the professional developer, but it does focus on the front end. So if you are exclusively the only thing you do is back-end development, the front-end developer might not hold too much appeal for you. The professional developer. As I said earlier, the associate developer, in my understanding, my opinion, if you get that certification, you will be, I'm guessing, at least in the top 50% of Magento developers right there. The professional developer, I am going to suggest that you are going to be in the top 20% of all Magento developers if you get the certification. So that's really good. This one is tough. It talks about, for example, the sort order in plugins. To be frank, probably neither you nor I really care much about the sort order in plugins in our daily work. But there are those cases when we do run into this and we need to know about it. That's the kind of thing that this test tests. It's the more complex, intricate aspects of Magento development. Of course, JavaScript is exactly what you'd expect. It covers JavaScript in Magento. Cloud. This covers the Magento cloud implementation. So how do you deploy applications on Magento cloud? I will say this up front. When I was working to prepare like a study guide for this test, I thought this test has to be so easy. What is there to know about Magento cloud? Well, it's not that easy. So Magento cloud is a really good test if you are, again, building applications. And then finally, we have the crown jewel of the Magento certifications. Friends, if you get this certification, I'm going to suggest that you are in the top 5% or better. There are very few people that have achieved the certification. and it is a difficult one. Keep in mind with this one, you do need to have access to Commerce Code. So Magento Commerce, the paid version, you need to have access to that. So that's the overview. Oh, and then Solution Specialist. This one is really tough. I would suggest that it is equivalent for a non-developer, but it would be the equivalent of the professional developer. So it doesn't focus on developer-related concepts, but it is still very difficult. All right, so let's talk about how we prepare. And I apologize. I wish there was a way that I could be able to share the video of me and my slides at the same time. I know that'd make it a little more interesting, but well, not that I would be interesting myself, but at least you would have something to look at as opposed to just slides. So anyways, how do I prepare to pass the test? I mean, that's really a big deal. I mean, again, we don't like to fail the first time, and that's what we would all like to avoid. So let's go through this step by step. First, use a study guide. Did you know that the Magento U study guide, the one you can go to Magento U's website, u.magento.com, that is literally the blueprint from which Magento certifications are written. So Magento, and it's in Excel format, but basically people from Magento and some other professionals in the community go through and write this information that will be in the study guide. And then when we go to sit down and write the actual test itself, we go through that information that's in the study guide, and we only write questions from that material. So the Magento study guide is that key to know what is on the test and what is not on the test. Obviously, you don't know the exact questions that will be asked, and frankly, it covers a broad amount of knowledge, but still it's limiting in that you know that this test only covers this material. As I said earlier, I think I did, view the certification as an achievement, but look at the time that you invest in getting to the certification as an investment in your knowledge. It is my opinion, my belief, that as you invest in yourself, in your knowledge, you are investing in something that's far bigger and far better than your bank account. Obviously, we all would love a pay raise. We would all like recognition. But even if you don't get a pay raise after the certification, and I know very few people that don't, most everyone does get at least some form of a pay raise after achieving a certification. Your pay raise will come in the future as you prove this knowledge that you have gained. So the certification is not the end goal. It's this knowledge that you gain is the end goal. So approach the certification like that. Again, one thing I do want to stress is there is no memorization questions on the test. For example, a memorization style question would be, what payment methods are available in Magento 2? Or what payment methods does Magento Commerce have that the open source version does not? There's no questions like that. Instead, it is scenario-based questions. And I will give you an example of what that looks like here in a minute. So how do we study? So read the available literature. Step through the Magento study guide. We do have study guides ourselves, but frankly, Magento U study guide is a great resource as well. Write notes, and I'm going to say in English, because the test will be in English, and it is super critical that even through this process, you are honing your English comprehension skills. Again, like I said earlier, I absolutely applaud you for being able to take this test and pass it, because I cannot imagine taking a test in Spanish or Hindi or Chinese or anything like that. It's incredible. So, but approach this test knowing that it's obviously going to be in English. Write your notes in English and really take notes. Again, you are getting this information out on paper, and the value or the benefit of notes is that the day before you take the test, a couple hours before you take the test, you can go back through and review those key points that you feel are important. All Magento tests are divided up into objectives. For example, in the solution specialist, the first objective is covering e-commerce. There's an objective covering the catalog. So that's talking about products and categories, etc. spend a week or two dedicated and focused on each objective. Again, write notes of your learning and your studies for each one. And then finally, this is important. Dedicate consistent time. Every morning, every evening, whatever it is. Set aside half an hour, hour, or more, and say, this time is only dedicated to my study and research for the test. Otherwise, and I know how it is, I get to work and there's an emergency. There's a fire that needs to be put out. And then I never get studying. So if you first thing in the morning especially, take the time to work on your studies. So here's the Magento U Study Guide. An excerpt taken from this. I believe this is for the Professional Developer Plus. And how would you approach studying for this? I mean, we see these words here, and maybe some of them are new to us. Like, how do we approach learning the information that is necessary in order to be able to pass this really difficult test? So the big goal is to develop this understanding of every tiny little topic that is discussed in the study guide. For example, as you saw a couple of slides back, we have UI component workflow. What in the world does that mean? Well, we need to find where UI components are rendered. So for example, we would go into the admin panel. We would go into, say, the product grid, so catalog products, and then view the source, find out where these UI components are rendered. Then we're going to set a breakpoint, find where that is rendered in the Magento code, set a breakpoint there, let that breakpoint be triggered. So using like PHP Storm and Xdebug, we would then step back through the call stack. So Xdebug gives you a list of every single method in that list of what it took to get to this place where the UI components are rendered, set breakpoints back through that process, and then step through what did it take to assemble these UI components. It sounds like a lot of work, because it is. It takes a lot of time, but this is how you will be able to pass the test. Again, the value is you will have such deep knowledge of UI components. That's why I say you will be in the top 5% if you pass the Professional Developer Plus. How many people do you know that have deep knowledge of UI components? In fact, UI components are a pretty well hated part of Magento 2, but they are still incredibly powerful. And as you learn how to harness this power, you will be a much better developer. You'll be able to build more powerful solutions, and everybody in the company will be coming to you saying, hey, would you build this for me? How do I do this? Which, again, is very good for your job and your resume. All right, here's another example. Retrieving a UI components instance from the UI registry. Well, a great example of this is, of course, to do a search. What is the UI registry? How do I access this? Well, Alan Storm has, of course, good articles. I'm sure you all have visited his information. Read through this article, see what it says, and then open up Chrome Developer Tools. Locate a UI component, use the require command, require UI registry, and then go get a UI component. How does this process look? It takes time, but you could probably spend 20, 30 minutes even on this topic alone. And as we saw here, there's a whole bunch more than just that. That's why I say this will take a lot of time. And granted, this is a difficult test we're talking about here, but still, it will take a lot of time. So set your expectations for that. I would also recommend a practice test, if at all possible. There's free questions available online. For example, the Magento U Study Guide has some free questions, 2 or 3, I think, usually per study guide. One thing I would suggest is don't memorize these questions. They're not going to be found on the test. Instead, use this as a chance to practice your English comprehension skills. Use it as a chance as an assessment. So, did you get this question right or wrong? If you got it wrong, well, then go study this area of Magento. Go back, find where this is roughly in the study guide, and then do a deep dive on that area. Maybe it's UI components. Well, exactly what I just talked about. Go do that. Make sure you have that deep knowledge. one thing I forgot to mention before is in this example number 1, when I say boil this down into the workflow, so every step that is there, so take notes in this process. And again, add them to your overall notes that you're going to review the day or a couple hours before you take the test. These notes are critical to not just understanding each individual step of the process, but look at it from a big view, like a macro level, a bird's eye view. And that's what boiling this down into the workflow means. Make sure that you have an understanding of this, taking the test from A to Z. All right, so let's continue on here. I do have to say this, that I get regular emails, and here's some examples of people asking for question dumps. As I'm sure you've heard already me say this thus far, question dumps ignore the whole purpose, the whole value to you, the benefit to you of taking the test. So you might achieve the certification, but you miss out on 90% of the value. And 90% of the value is you gaining this knowledge, your coworkers coming to you asking for help, and you getting promotions, pay raises as a result of your extreme and deep expertise of the Magento platform. So as a friend, I consider you all friends here. As a friend, I would suggest not doing this. You might pass the test, but you're hurting yourself in the process, and ultimately the Magento brand and everybody else, but you are missing out on much value. All right, so this is an important subject, and again, as I said earlier, absolutely applaud you for being able to, for even wanting to take a test like this. It's incredible. So here's a few things that I believe will help you in this process. Number 1, ensure all notes are taken in English. Again, your goal is to, while I'm sure you speak English, you're listening to me right now, you can understand it. And it's another thing to be able to be really quick at it. That's your goal for passing this test. You have 1.5 minutes per question. And we'll look at an example question here in a couple minutes. 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds might seem like a long time, but when there's a lot of text and talking about difficult concepts, 1.5 minutes goes by very quickly. So practice your English reading comprehension. There is English comprehension quizzes online, again, to put some pressure on you, to try to make this happen quickly. So take these quizzes. Second, buy an English novel, an English book, and see how quickly you can read it. Try to put some pressure on yourself to get through this as fast as possible, as well as time yourself. So your goal, again, is to be quick on your feet and to be able to work through these tests as fast as possible. These are some things that I think will help you. And this might sound scary, but expect to spend 80+ hours preparing for an exam. And I'm not talking about memorizing, again, concepts. Digging in, understanding how Magento works. For example, and I can't remember which test it was that I was working. I think it was the professional developer test. I was working at passing. And by the way, I found out, I saw that I wasn't sharing my slides there at the beginning. I've taken all the Magento 1 certifications, and the only Magento 2 test I have not passed is the JavaScript. I haven't even tried that one. I'm not really interested in that. But 80+ hours is pretty typical. I spend a lot more than that, but in preparing for an exam. One thing that I did on the Professional Developer Plus is I set a breakpoint in pub/index.php, the very first line. I stepped through literally every line of code to execute a Magento request. That took hours and hours and hours. There are so many lines of code. But as a result, it helped me gain a really good picture as far as how these Magento tests, or how the Magento application runs. Another big question I often get is, when do I know I'm ready? Ultimately, I can't really say this is when you're ready, this is when you're not ready. But the feeling that I get and I've come to see when I am ready is you feel like there's nothing more to study. It seems like everything you've covered, you've already looked into this, you've already studied it. That's a big indicator. Second, maybe you take a practice test. You you're feeling confident that you're able to get through these questions in 1.5 minutes each. And I'm not talking about memorizing these practice tests, but using those tests sparingly as an assessment of, am I ready or not? All right, so let's talk about, how do we take this test? Where do we go? How do we actually do this? And what are some tricks to being able to pass the test? So the first place you can do it, take the test, is at a test center. And maybe you all have had an opportunity to do that. You go there, you sit in a room. I don't like test centers because you hear lots of people sniffling, coughing, and there's squeaky chairs. It's difficult to concentrate. I'm here to take the test, and so is everybody else. I have not liked test centers. Maybe you like them, and that's great. It is an option. But what I suggest is take it at home or in the office. You still need a quiet place to do this, and you do need a webcam. So many laptops have a webcam built in, but you can't use that one. You have to have a separate one, like you see this Logitech mouse, or Logitech mouse, not a mouse. Oopsie, what am I doing here? A Logitech webcam. So they can be fairly inexpensive, but you need that, and you set it up to the side. So you can't see me here, but it'd be like off to your right or your left side, so the person can see your screen and they can see your face. Of course, and you are recorded. So I'm confident that Peter at Magento has seen some of recordings of me taking tests, and he'll be able to see recordings of you taking tests too. So I like the home or office because, again, where I'm speaking to you right now is my office, and I'm very comfortable here. I do my work here all day, every day. So I'm very comfortable, and I feel like I can think best, because you want to be at your prime. You want to be able to be on your feet in order to pass this test. You don't want any distractions. And again, that sniffling, that coughing, those squeaky chairs, that's a distraction to me. Get it scheduled. If you're looking to take a Magento certification, go get it scheduled today. I can't tell that and say that enough, because unfortunately what I've seen is the tendency is to put it off. Okay, well, I'll take it next month. Well, I'll take it next month. And then the next month arrives and it never happens. We get onto a big project. The boss is saying, come on, you got to finish up this big project. And I never get it done. And then it's delayed for another month. So get it scheduled. What should we expect when we go to take a test? This is not exactly what it's going to look like when you are taking the test, but here's what you are looking at. You're going to have questions like this. The first part of the question is going to be a scenario. It's going to give you some information, but unfortunately that information is never enough. It's going to give you a question. So how do we solve this problem? What is the effect of this? And then it's going to give you some answers. So Magento tests are either 1 correct answer out of 4, 2 out of 4, or 3 out of 5. In this case, this is a 2 out of 4. It says choose 2. And you have to select the right answer. These scenario-based questions are difficult. Again, they're not memorization-based. You are presented almost with every single question with a problem. And then the answers are, how do you solve this problem? The good news is that many of these questions are real-life scenarios. So if you have a lot of experience on the platform, if you have done your study and your research and learned the Magento application, you're going to have a good chance. I still suggest doing more study, but if you have, say, 2 years of experience on any one of these tests, writing Magento applications, or for the solution specialist working in the Magento admin panel for 2 years, you're going to have a really good chance of passing. Okay, so as I said earlier, 90 seconds per question, 60 questions per test. And you have 90 minutes total, so an hour and a half in order to take this test. Here is a secret that I want to share with you with regards to how this works. And forgive the HTML here in my these questions here. I'm just seeing that now. I'm not going to give you the question here. This is from one of our practice tests, but here are some of the answers. And because, again, the question is not important. The scenario is not important. What is important is, when possible, group the answers. So as you're going through this, you're going to see questions, or the answers often have similarities. So in this example, we see 2 answers are correct. In many, I'm going to say most of the questions on the test, 1 answer is correct. All they require you to do is answer 1 question. And grouping is especially effective there. So you can look through this and see in these answers, upgrade data and data patch would be somewhat in the same idea, some of the same thought process there. And 2 and 4 use the module data setup as well as the EAV. That's kind of how you set up your the installer. So for the installing some data here. So either way, we have grouped it down. If it's 1 out of 4, if you are able to group these answers, and I'm going to say 4 out of 5 times you can group the answers, you then eliminate the ones that you know are emphatically wrong. So, or seem most wrong. In that way, you have limited down your chances. Well, let me put it this way: you have increased your chances actually of achieving this question by, well, now you have a 50-50. So if you're able to eliminate 2 answers right away, you have a 50-50 chance on this question. So instead of being a 25% chance, a 50-50 is much, much better. Group your questions or group the answers as best as possible. I found this especially effective for me as I'm going through these tests and taking them. Here's another secret that I suggest you take to heart. So remember, we have 90 minutes to take the exam. I take the first 20 or 30 minutes and I call it a triage round. So in the United States, I'm sure maybe in India as well, when there's an accident, when there's a car crash or a big problem, and so the fire department or the ambulance comes, one of the first things that they do is they assess the situation. Who's hurt worst? Who do we need to get to the hospital? What are we looking at? And that's really this idea here of taking the test. I want to get a picture. What am I up against? How many questions do I just not even have a clue to the answer? And no matter how hard you study, there will be some questions like that. I don't have the foggiest clue. So I take 20, 30 minutes and I quickly go through the test. Any question, I'll answer most of the questions, maybe all of the questions. I'll check an answer or 2 answers for. But I will mark any question that I'm not sure of. I'll then go back through, taking 30, 40 minutes, again, watching the clock, and I'll take time on every single one of those difficult questions. What is it that I'm not understanding? I'm going to read the question 2 or 3 times. I'm going to try to understand it as best as possible. Then I'm going to choose the answer or applicable answers. One suggestion here. One other reason that I see people failing these tests, or at least answering individual questions wrong, is because they add information to it. So a question gives only the information required in order to make a successful or correct answer. It was funny I've helped write several Magento tests. There's been a couple of times that a question is read to the entire group, and Peter Manajak, he's the one that heads up all these certifications. So if you don't like a certification, you can blame him. But he's the one that, so the question is read, the answers are read, and then he answers it correctly. And to be frank, that's frustrating because he's not necessarily technical. He's very sharp when it comes to creating tests, but he's not necessarily technical with Magento stuff. The funny thing is, there's been several of those situations, though, where nobody else in the room gets it correctly. And we're all solution specialists, for example, or developers. And the reason is we add to the requirements. We add extra information to this question. You add information to the question, you'll probably get the answer wrong. So read that question very, very carefully. And then the third step of this is to go through each answer again. So you're taking a test fresh, like you've never seen these questions before. Go through each answer, each question, and then answer and double check yourself. Frankly, there's usually 2 or 3 questions that I changed my answer on in this round. I didn't read the question carefully. I just saw something now that it makes a difference. And as well, use up the clock. Don't, if you have 30 minutes left and you click, I'm done on this test, and you fail, you're going to be mad at yourself. You're going to be really upset at yourself. Use up the clock every second. It's better to have it expire than for you to click out early. Here's another couple more secrets. I like to schedule it for Tuesday. It's not a good luck day, but it has, in my opinion, the best chance of passing. I've just refreshed myself on the weekend, have taken a couple of days off, and now Monday I can get back into study, and now Tuesday I am ready to take the test. Take the test, in my suggestion, again, around 9 a.m. If you take the test at 5 in the evening or 6 in the evening, you just had a long, hard work day. You've maybe had some emergencies. You're still thinking about those challenges in work, and now you're not focused on this test. Block off the morning. Make sure that turn your cell phone off, whatever it takes, to completely disconnect. So you wake up that morning and you're going to have nothing but a good day. And then you're focusing on the test. So hopefully at the end of this, you will pass your test and you will get this email if you pass it. Actually, the cloud test, I failed the first time. I failed that test the first time I took it. I then studied more, and you've seen 88%. So that's a really good score. But again, I failed it the first time. So if I fail, I'm sure that you guys all can fail as well. So it's part of being human. Remember that failure is an event. It is not a person. It happens to all of us, but you will pass as you apply yourself and what I'm talking about. So I don't know if it's possible for you to ask questions. We have maybe a couple minutes left, but if you have questions, maybe I don't know how this would work, but you could feel free to ask them here. Maybe they can be communicated to me. Otherwise, I am super grateful to be here and to share with you all. And this has been really exciting to be able to talk with you all. So we'll see if we can make questions happen. All right. I'm not hearing anything, but yes, I can hear you now. Just barely. Very quiet, though. My pleasure.
It's really appreciate your efforts that you guide our attendees for the test, and I really hope that they get a better insight to take the certification test. And regarding the queries, I will share your email ID with them, and they will send their queries directly to you. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's great with you all, and I wish you the very best as you go for your certifications. So,
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hello guys. So after this presentation, many of you would want to have a Magento certified tag under your name. So it is only for developers. I am going to ask some questions, and if you get it right, you will get a Swift Order 300 USD Magento developer certification kit. The kit will have some study materials to prepare for Magento certifications. Okay? So are you ready? Okay. So can you tell me what is facade design? First, only raise your hands. Don't ask. Don't say anything without raising your hand. Okay. What is facade design pattern and where it is used in Magento 2? Facade design pattern, FACADE. You have to give full answer. What is facade design pattern and also where it is used. Nobody? I asked you to just raise your hands. Okay, stand up. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. What is facade? So you get it right little bit. So yeah. Huh? Please come. अभी तो फोटो खिंचा रहा हूँ ना. अरे बता. So I think it was a tough question. Only one hand raised. So next question. It will be a little simpler. So what is AMD and where it is used in Magento? Just you raise your hands, I will ask. Only 3 hands, 4 hands. What is the example? Okay, right. This is the last question. Anyone knows here what is the area types in Magento 2? All the area types. You are little close but not exactly right. Anyone else? I am asking the area types where the code executes. It depends on its scope. Okay. There are more areas. Anyone? Okay, I think I should skip this question. Now my next question is related to Magento Commerce. There is a new prototype added in Magento Commerce. It is only for developers, so BDs can take their hands down. Anyone knows? A new prototype was added in Magento Commerce. It is not in Magento Community. क्या बोला? Oh. Thank you guys. We had only 3 free certificates, so that's it. Thank you.
On the topic that's challenges with Magento 2 as a headless solution and a PWA. Kritika.
This is Kritika Bhatt, and today I'll be discussing the topic Magento 2 as a headless solution with all of you. So, throughout this session, we will be going through these contents, which is headless in Magento 2, why we should go for headless, introduction to Magento 2 REST API, then challenges, what all are the possible challenges we can face while migrating toward an headless approach, and finally I'll share my final thoughts with you. So before starting with the session, I would just like to give you a basic brief of what headless is exactly all about. So basically, headless could be divided into 3 parts. So in the backend, you have any CMS driven or any database driven application which will be drawing or fetching the data, and any other similar system like a POS or an ERP could be integrated to the same. Then for the communication between the front end and the backend, we will be having some APIs, and we'll define some easy to use access endpoints for those API to fetch the data. So this API will basically use a straightforward data format, which is JSON, and these API will be REST APIs. And then the third part that we have is the glass or the presentation layer, or we also called it as a content layer, where all the data from the backend will be fetched and will be presented to this glass layer. So the backend, so the headless approach is a kind of an approach which is divided into these basic 3 steps. So moving on to the next slide, we have what is headless software. So a headless software or any headless CMS is a CMS in which the backend and the front end is totally decoupled. That means they are not at all engaged with one another. Rather, we are using APIs to connect them. That means even your backend and front end could be placed in different servers and could be totally isolated. So before moving further to headless, I would like to discuss some basics about the monolithic web shops. So monolithic web shops are like the traditional web shops. These are basically the e-commerce platforms or the CMS where backend and the front end is completely married. That means they are both highly coupled, and every backend will be needing a front end to display the data, and there will be direct connection between the both. So for a basic example of this is Magento 2 as well, and there are other CMS also that works on basically the same approach, where backend will be completely connected with the front end. Now, see, in the early days of e-commerce, the only viable channel for the traffic used to be the desktop. Now, as the purchase expanded to meet the growing expectations of the customer, the traffic started appearing from the mobile, as well as some complex matrix of buyer and consumer touchpoints, which we now call as omni-channels as well. So to manage and to come up to their expectations, these type of traditional systems were not that effective. Why? Because they were not flexible. And by flexibility, I mean, it will be totally in the direction that if I want to change one thing, then it will definitely affect the other thing. So it's like if I want to make a small change in front end, so it's very risky that this might not affect the front end. So in that case of system, we move toward the headless. So in a headless platform, basically, we have 4 things. We have a storage database, which is your normal CMS. Then you have a content management component where all the data will be based. And then we have RESTful APIs, which will draw the data. And finally, all the content will be published in the front end tier. So this is a kind of an headless structure. Now, moving to the classic Magento architecture, this is the basic architecture that Magento 2 follows. You have a backend, then you use all codes and your plugins to make it work, and then finally the things are rendered on the front end. So basically by codes and plugins, I mean normal functionality is always available by Magento. So if you want to do any kind of enhancement, or if you want to add any kind of your customized code, then you have to make a plugin to it, you have to make it execute, and these plugins that we create get automatically hooks into the Magento layout. Why? Because we create this plugin using extending the original layout. So it's not kind of a bigger deal. So, and finally the data is rendered to the Chrome. Finally the data will be rendered to the Chrome. So in this kind of setup, what we have is that a static vanilla HTML page, then you make some remote API calls, and then finally you will fetch the data and show the data to the front end. Coming to the headless architecture, the architecture is like a little bit different here, where we have a content database, then we have a rendering engine, which basically could be a Magento, which will be fetching the data. And finally, the rendering engine here for the front end. So here, this is like an API layer where you will create an API. And finally, the rendering engine could be PHP or the node server, which will render the data to the HTML. So all you need here is a static web HTML page, and you will be using JavaScript or any other framework. So you will be using JavaScript or any other kind of framework, and which will basically draw some AJAX request to fetch the data, and finally the data will be rendered here in the front end or the Chrome. Coming to next, we have momentum of headless in Magento 2. So with the introduction of Magento 2 is something, it's like a full stack application where you have a front end and you have a back end which is coupled, and it gives you a complete functionality as a whole. So as the Magento 2 evolves, and from Magento we want to move to Magento 2, so it's getting, the security is even getting more hardened. And with the introduction of web APIs and the service contracts in the Magento 2, it was a very good starting point for the headless scenario. So we can say Magento 2 is partially moving toward the headless approach, or it's basically giving you a very good starting point for the same. So it's basically follow a little bit of headless architecture in the checkout sessions. So it's basically you have a database, then you have PHP facilitating data, and now in the templates the data is provided by using your knockout.js. Finally data is rendered to your Chrome. So in this scenario, this is not completely headless. Why? Because everything is within the Magento itself. So there is no other system involved here. For example, so here the question arises, who are like the most eligible candidates for using the headless approach? So let us suppose that I am basically a merchant who is running a website that is content rich. For example, I provide content on my site, which is not an e-commerce store, of course. So what I'll do is, the best CMS for me right now in this case, when I only have to show the content, will be either Algolia or the WordPress. It's either of my choice. Now, because the e-commerce is evolving a lot, so what I want is that now I want to move my store to an e-commerce. That means rather than showing content, I also want to make some sale. That means I can publish my magazine, and normal people can come to my site, and then they can add the product to the cart, and they can sell it. So in this scenario, if I'm working on CMS like WordPress, then how can I use the functionality of Magento? So by using an headless approach, what you can do is that you can use both CMS as well as the e-commerce functionality of Magento 2. Why? The only thing that you need to add is a Magento backend, and you will create a Swift API there, a REST API, which will finally fetch the data to the front end. So it's like this is a kind of the most eligible candidates who can move toward an headless approach. Next we have why we should move toward headless. So first thing is that better isolation. Obviously, when you are decoupling a backend and a front end, that means the backend developer could only work on the backend part, and you are isolating the front end. In fact, in this scenario, the front end and the backend could also be placed in the different servers. So the front end designer, or basically the UI UX part, they only need to deal with a static HTML page, which was not driven by any kind of a PHP code here. So it's like it's easy for them to work on it because they do not need to understand any kind of complex logic that is involved with the same. And the backend developer could only focus on the backend part. So there is no kind of a dependency. There's no blocking between both of them. Then the second, we have reusable components. It's very much understood as I'm making the API. Then the same API, if I'm using the API to draw the data and show it on the web, then I can use the very same API to fetch and show the data in mobile applications as well. So it's like I'm giving a one-time investment to the code, and I'm giving one time of all the efforts that I want in development, and finally I can use the same API in other applications. So it's a kind of a reusability of the code, which is a very good thing. And then the third point we have is reduce overall development time, which is often connected with the second one, of course, because if you are using an API and you're using the same APIs in multiple channels, then obviously it will affect your development time. Then the last one is the most important, related to the omni-channel capabilities. So let me explain this by giving an example. Right now, at a particular stage of time where e-commerce is so much evolved, what we are doing is that the traffic is not coming just from a single channel. Rather, it's dependent. Also, being a customer, if I, let's take a very basic example, where I'm a customer, I have a mobile, and I'm doing some shopping on any e-commerce store. So what I'll do is that I've added 2 or 3 products in the cart. Now, the next step is the checkout. But I don't want to do the checkout from my mobile application. So what I did is that the very next day, I logged in to the same store, but on my desktop. So in this scenario, what I want is basically the checkout should be from my desktop, the adding to cart process from my phone, and maybe the shipment process in which I want to complete the entire process and collect my order or my patches. Then in that case, I will manually go to that store and collecting it. So all these 3 steps are performed on different platforms. So in this scenario, all the data should be integrated. If there is any other further connection of any other system like an ERP or a POS, then all the 3 should show the same data. So in that kind of approach, headless is like the best thing. Now, introduction to Magento 2 REST API. So this is like a small introduction of how we can define an API in Magento. And then this is like a sample code of a product API. This will give you an entire collection of the product. Then second, we have authentications in the API. So here we have 3: token-based, OAuth based, and then the session-based. So the token-based is something that we will be using in the headless kind of approach. Why? Because other 2 OAuth based is like totally dependent upon the third party or the external integration, and then we have session-based, which Magento uses for admin and customer sessions. So token-based, in token-based kinds of authentication, we generally generate a unique token that is used to render the data. So finally, using this token only, you can access the API data. Now coming to the challenges with headless. Now what all could be the, it sounds fun because it's kind of a buzz these days around headless, but what all could be the possible challenges? The very first one being the core modules. Then second, we'll have performance. Performance is something, it comes in cons as well as in pros of this headless approach. And then we have the third party modules. Coming to the core modules, see, many of these core modules do not use REST APIs at all. So in fact, even in the latest version of Magento, you could not find the web APIs in wishlist, offline payments. Then RMH is basically a return feature, which is an enterprise edition. And then you have newsletter. So all these things do not, all these basically modules do not use any kind of REST API. So in such cases, if you are moving toward headless, and you want the REST APIs of any of them, so it's something a very hell of a job. Why? Because you have to create everything from the very scratch. Then the second thing, CMS block do not render widgets. Do not render widgets at all. In fact, I've attached an example here. I've created a block and then I've passed a widget here like this. And all that you can see, if you'll pass this in Postman, will be a JSON string where the output is something like this. So if you will check it out, then the string appear like completely like this. So not a good thing for the CMS, for the store dealing with the CMS part. Second, now this important thing, performance. See, performance, if we count it in ROS, then what all could be the benefits of performance? You are actually setting the HTML page completely free from the PHP driven code, which should bring it execution time or the loading time extremely low. So it is one of the important part that performance could be increased. But this is a kind of, a hypothetical concept. And now why? Because even if you are drawing data from an API, now the question arises, how many APIs you will use? For example, if your page uses 10 resources, that means you have to drive at least 10 URLs of the API to hit it. In fact, this could also be a scenario where your one URL could spawn multiple bunch of URL. So in this scenario, there will be multiple requests. So finally, the end result is this, that you are putting a heavy load on your database. So performance is something that comes as an hypothetical issue here. So a 100% headless performance could only be measured when you go like a 100% headless scenario. In a 100% headless scenario, what you will be having is, you will be having a front-end framework on the React.js, and then you might be replacing PHP with Node, because Node server is like multitasking and PHP could not multitask. Then the other thing is flat catalog is not enabled for REST APIs at all. So in case if you are using the REST API, you cannot expect data coming from the flat. And the third and the most important thing, see, performance could only be increased if you manage some caching at certain point of time. So we consider caching as one of the important performance concept. So here we have, in the REST APIs, there is no such caching technique available at all. Now coming to the third-party modules, beside Magento, there are many other third-party modules. So integrations in the headless approach will be like will not be a trivial task at all. Why? Because most or very few modules, third-party modules, actually provide you APIs. Even if you will check the Magento code, you may found very less places where you will actually get the REST APIs. So in that case, forget about the REST APIs, you will not even find the documentation. So it will be like a very trivial task for you guys to study everything, then create something from the very scratch. And other thing is that there's a lot of business logic that has been applied in the blocks and controllers. So in most of the third-party modules, you will see a hell lot of code in the blocks and the controllers, which will be like a whole new thing for you if you create the same thing and try to fetch this thing in an API. So now coming to my final thoughts, what all good? The very first point is what all good can come with your JS. See, it seems really very nice that there's a vanilla HTML page and you are drawing the content. For example, if we take a basic product page, so you have created a product listing page. Now what you have placed certain placeholder in the HTML page so that every product looks similar. Now the JavaScript will drive from any JavaScript based tool or any JavaScript based application will make some post request and will fill the page with a product image individually. Now in this scenario, what you are doing is that you are driving a hell lot of APIs from there. So the question again arises that how many API do you need here? And even is that necessary to do so? Then the other advantage, the other final thought is that even this headless kind of approach should only work with the front end, where you need to enhance the customer experience. For example, if I consider the back end, and it will be really, really foolish to use this headless approach in the back end. Why? Because there's no kind of a customer interference in that. The headless approach could only be used when you want to enhance the customer or the user experience. So this kind of approach could only work where there's some kind of, your JavaScript code is basically actually injecting something into the code. So we can take advantage of the robust Magento 2 API framework from the same approach, and we can use service contracts in our modules to make it an ease. And finally, the development can definitely go faster if the software architecture is applied like in a perfect stage and in a perfect time. So I'll be ending this topic right here and would like to have my colleague who will discuss, Khushboo, who will discuss upon PWA.
Thanks Kritika for telling us such an amazing topic, headless commerce. Hello guys, this is Khushboo Sahu and I am working in Webkul as a software engineer since 2018. And today I will tell you about why we should apply for PWA. Let's understand what is the need of PWA. So let's take an example. If you are traveling from Noida to Kanpur and to celebrate any event or a festival, and you want to purchase some gifts or presents for your family. So if you are searching for a product or trying to place an order, and as we know that most of the time the network will be out of coverage area. So in that case, what will you do? You will be offline and you will be unable to perform any action. So here PWA comes. So let's see what is PWA. PWA is a web application that can run on your browser and having app-like features, and it provides better user experience. So moving to the next, why we should apply for PWA. There are lots of reasons and some points that's for we should apply for PWA. First is full responsiveness and browser compatibility. Full responsiveness means PWA has built by using the progressive concept. That's why it can be done. It can be done on any device, irrespective of its size or specifications. For example, if you are using a tablet, a desktop, mobile, then it will provide the same user experience across all devices. Browser compatibility means PWA can run on any browser and having modern features. For example, Chrome, Mozilla and Firefox. Now, moving to the next, connectivity independence. This is the best feature of PWA because, for example, if you are having an e-commerce store and you are having an e-commerce website for your store, and a customer wants to buy some products or search for some products on your website, or if you are having also a native app, but in both of cases there will be there should be network online. But in case of PWA, you can access the data and you can also place an order when you are offline. Moving to the next, app-like interface. PWA having app-like interface means there is a service worker. It is a technical tool which I will explain in next slide. There is a service worker that can, when you install the app, PWA app, it creates the app cell in your device and caches the all data, so you can access the all your required data when you are offline. And it is responsible to provide the app-like interface to your PWA. You will, as you can see in the image, it is looking like a native app layout as a navigation drawer, and also it will be having the interactive interface as a native app. Moving to the next, push notifications. This is another best feature of PWA. For example, if you are having an e-commerce website and you are providing the offers on some products and you want to notify to the users that you are providing the offers so that a number of customers will be come to your website and purchase the lots of products. So if you are having a e-commerce website, then how will you advertisement for offers? So you can set a banner or some text in your website. But if you are providing the PWA for your website or for your e-commerce store, then in that case you can send the notifications to the user. So user can be re-engaged to your website and they will be motivated to open the app. And as PWA is a web application, progressive web application, we hit the URL on browser, so it is also good can be for SEO of your website. Moving to the next, discoverability and easy installation. For example, if you have to install a native app, then what steps you will be follow? You will go to the Play Store or App Store and search for that app, and then you will download that, and then the app will be installed. But if you want to install the PWA, there are very simple steps. Then you will hit the URL of your website, e-commerce website on your browser, and there will be an option will be appear, add to home screen, and you have to click on that or tap on that. The app will be installed on your device. It will be, device can be your desktop, mobile device, laptop, tablet, etc. Moving to the next, this feature self updates. For example, if you are having a native app for your e-commerce stores, then if you are making some changes, then user there is mandatory the user should go to the Play Store and then download the app, means to update the app. But in case of PWA, there is no any extra effort. There is a service worker that can update your PWA time to time. So user can get that most of the time updated data. Moving to the next, security. PWA served by HTTPS, so it is very secure and any unauthorized user can't access the data, and it is very useful in case of payment process because it will be processed by HTTPS. And in PWA you can also use the payment APIs. So by using the payment APIs you can reduce the long form filling steps when user is processing the payment. There will, if you are using the payment APIs, so there will be some taps and user will be able to proceed the payment. So moving to the next, technical components of PWA. In PWA, firstly we discuss about the web app manifest. This is first technical component of PWA. The web app manifest, it is a JSON file where you can define the different attributes for your PWA. When we create any native app, there will also a web manifest file where we define the first intent which will be open when you run the app. As well as in PWA, we define the web app manifest file when you will open the PWA, the first screen will be splash screen, for which you can define the short name or name and icon image as well when splash screen will be open. So for that you can set an icon or there can be different size of icons. So when the app will be in different devices, so accordingly the icon will be displayed. Next attribute, you can define the start URL. Start URL is that where you can define that URL what URL you want to show in PWA when it will be open. Next, you can define the background color and theme color for your application, and you can also set the display mode and orientation for your application. In display mode, you can set the different values, for example, standalone, full screen, minimal UI and browser. And in orientation, you can set the landscape or portrait. Most of the default value will be portrait, and if you are providing any PWA for your game, in case of gaming, in that case you can set the orientation as a landscape. Next technical component is a service worker. So let's see what is a service worker. Service worker is a script that runs on your browser separately in background, and it works as a proxy between the PWA and network. Means web server when you are online. And service worker is responsible for push notifications and for caching and for background syncing. So let's see what can service worker do. So as you can see, there is an image where there is two scenario in online and offline. So when you send the request from PWA, the request service worker receives the request, and it will check that that you are online or offline. So if you are online, the service worker sends the request to the server, and it will get the data, and there will be fetch API will be hit, and the response will go to the PWA, and you will get the response from server. And if you are offline, in that case service worker receives the request, and there will be cache API will be hit, and the service worker get the data from the offline cache, and it will be response to the PWA, and you will get the data. So in next slide you can see here difference between native app website and PWA. There are some points which I have already explained you, that is function offline push notification and full experience indexable by search engine, work across all devices and doesn't require updates. And thank you. If you have any query, you can ask.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kritika Bhatt and Khushboo Sahu, for such giving an insight on the challenges we face in headless solution in PWA. At last, we are heading towards the wrap up for this meetup. So at the end, I would like to thank the attendees. First of all, give a round of applause for the attendees here. Because of you all, we are not able to get such a good meetup. And after that, our Magento speakers and the external speakers to provide the insight of the technology in Magento. My special thanks to Webkul design team, Webkul admin team, and Webkul networking team. A round of applause for all of them. And last, our sponsors. Thank you so much for our sponsor teams to give their goodies to contribute in this event. I would like to thank first of all our platinum sponsors, PayPal, Webkul, gold sponsor Bagesto, Qlo, eCommerce, eComvisor, UVdesk, Cloudcool, Mobicool, silver sponsors Pimcore, Elastic, MangoPay, PayU, SwiftUtter Solutions. Thank you so much for contributing this event and to make this such a success. Thank you again. Now I would like to call our internal speakers for the goodies distribution, and that is to be done by Mr. Abhishek Singh. First of all, I would like to call Sagar and Vishal. Paul Datta and Ajay Saini. The prize is given by Mr. Ratnesh. Sanjay and Manish Gangola. Now I would like to call Mr. Rahul Mehto to give the prize to Kritika and Khushboo. Himanshu, Jindal and Rishabh. Now one by one, please, all the attendees of the event come to the